Qualified, professional, and compassionate doctors talking real solutions to real health problems.
Good evening, viewers. Welcome to our week's favorite show, the DocTalk show. Dr. Joseph Gavin Nyanzi, your host. Thank you so much for allowing us into your homes this evening, and we are here yet again at the very, very important topic of our lives, and that is health. We've all heard the statement that your health is your wealth. That means that your wealth is determined to a very big extent by your health. And so my team and I are here to make sure that actually we discuss that issue and see how we can make you better by empowering you with information that is up to date. And that topic this evening is something that is with us every day of our lives. Actually, from day one, a few minutes after you're born, it is something that is very, very crucial. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce to us a friend. And I just learned this evening that actually our guest tonight happens to be my old boy from high school, Jimmy Osret. We were together in the school, Uganda Matazes Namgongo. So it's been a joy. Even before we got onto air, we've been catching up a lot of memories from that school. And I know he's going to do our topic justice this evening. Jimmy Osret, you're very welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Joseph. Good evening, viewers.
A little bit about Jimmy. Jimmy Osret is a public health specialist, is a research associate with Makerere University School of Public Health, and is here to address our topic this evening. And the topic we're going to talk about tonight is the topic of, you guessed it, food. And you could be asking yourself, what about food don't I know? Probably I brought to your memory that actually a few minutes after you're born, it is very recommended that you begin to feed straight away. And that determines your health, determines your brain power, among many other things. In primary school, we are taught about a balanced diet. We all remember vitamins, carbohydrates, fats, proteins, etc. And these are very important segments of our development, of our development as human beings. Food is a very important factor. Jimmy, food. We've been talking about food since we were little.
Oh, yes.
Yes, and I thought today we really need to talk about food safety in our country, in our generation. Please, your views about food and food safety, balanced diet, yes.
Thank you very much for the introduction. But before I go into having a conversation around food safety, let me start by commending the producers of this show, the DocTalk show. The discussions that are held on this platform generate information that is so relevant to the public out there. The public is able to make informed decisions about their lifestyles, about their health. And in the long run, we shall have people having and living a quality life. And Joseph, this contributes to the national development plans,
wow,
which has an aspect of ensuring that we live quality lives. Concerning food safety, the meaning of food safety is that the food that is consumed by people is free from harmful substances. The food that you consume is of quality that is acceptable for consumption. By the term free from contaminants, I mean that the food is free from pathogens, and these pathogens could be bacteria, these pathogens could be viruses, and they could also be parasites. Fungal, indeed, yes.
Yeah.
Additionally, we want people to consume food that is also free from chemical contaminants.
Wow.
as we shall be discussing moving forward. There is a pervasive use of agrochemicals in the agriculture industry, and we shall look at its role in compromising the quality of food.
Yeah.
By and large, food safety is the assurance that the food that we consume will not cause harm to the consumers.
In other words, the question we are going to be answering tonight, that we're going to be talking about, is whether what we consume in our homes, at our workplaces, in our schools, at the pitch while we are playing soccer, playing with friends, is safe for our bodies. That's what you're trying to talk about.
Oh, yes.
Please carry on.
So, as we delve more into this interesting topic of food, I like to start by making a statement that food, building on what Joseph has said, food is paramount for life. And because it's paramount for life, it is a fundamental human right that will ensure that it is safe.
Wow.
However, we are noticing there is a burden as a result of food safety. The statistics show that hundreds of millions of people suffer from food-related illnesses. And of that, annually, that is globally, we have over 430,000 people dying from foodborne illnesses.
Say that again. How many others?
430,000 people dying from foodborne illnesses. So
wow. That
we
is
cannot
quite
take
a big
this lightly.
number. So your food is very, very important. For close to 500,000 people die. Did you say annually?
Annually.
Because of things related with food. Listen in. Yes, Jimmy, please,
Yes.
take it on.
Worse still, the burden of this problem is more pronounced among those that are less than 5 years of age. And this is the age group that is grappling with nutritional related challenges, and we need to do something about this problem. The other point I want to make in trying to discuss the burden of food-related illnesses is the fact that there are issues of lost productivity if you're unwell.
Yeah.
There are issues around medical costs in managing illnesses. So all these are some of the indirect effects of consuming food that is of low quality.
That means very, very paramount that the food you're ingesting or the food you're taking in is of a good quality that may not bring harm to your body. Because if you're taking in food of substandard quality, you are causing more problems. You're eating up on your finances in case you get ill from poor quality feeding. Yes, Jimmy.
Yes. And one thing I wanted to mention in terms of the statistics, we lose billions of dollars in managing health-related costs as a result of these foodborne illnesses. This is a global estimate of the burden. Additionally, the most common foodborne illness is diarrhea, in addition to the other illnesses that we shall be discussing furthermore. And the statistics show that we have over 550 million people who suffer from this illness globally.
That is a very, very huge number of people suffering from illness because of food, poor quality food. And that's a lot of money that is being spent on managing these issues. Jimmy, thank you for bringing up this. And we are going to take a short break. Please, we'll be back in a moment.
The Ministry of Health informs the general public that amidst the difficult times of the pandemic, routine immunization for all children under 5, those eligible for HPV vaccines, and women of childbearing age is still going on in all our health facilities. Parents and caregivers, take all your children for immunization as per their schedule. All vaccines are safe, effective, and free. Remember to observe the COVID-19 prevention measures as you go for immunization services. Wear a mask mask properly, covering your mouth and nose. Wash your hands regularly with soap and clean water or use an alcohol-based sanitizer. Maintain a physical distance of at least 2 meters from others and avoid crowds. This message is from the Ministry of Health with support from partners.
You are watching the DocTalk Show.
Keep your eyes on the prize, eyes on the prize, eyes on the dream, eyes on the dream, eyes on the scene, eyes on the scene, eyes on the scheme. You gon' need eyes behind your back to see who's got your back. Who's got your back? As a matter of fact, maybe what's your own back? Who you looking at? Who's looking at you? Blinded by love, maybe you need a better view. All eyes on you, all eyes on you. These eyes on you, these eyes on you. World's eyes on you, world's eyes on you. So what you gon' do? So what you gon' do?
Readjust your vision for an all-new season of Big Brother Naija on GoTV. Rated 18, proudly sponsored by Abeg and associate sponsor Patricia.
You are watching the DocTalk Show.
Welcome back. We are here. Dr. Joseph Gavin Nyanzi, your host tonight on the DocTalk Show. We are also live on our social media platforms. That is the DocTalk Show on YouTube, the DocTalk Show on Facebook, the DocTalk Show on Twitter. Get to those platforms, subscribe to our platforms, and please share the link. Share the link, please. Share the link with your friends and family. This is very important information we are discussing tonight. Food safety. There is no home in this country, there is no home in the world that doesn't have issues to do with food. So please invite your friends and let's empower each other this evening. Jimmy, we kicked off from the point of the huge number of people in hundreds of millions that are affected annually because of issues to do with food, poor quality food. Yes. What brings about the poor quality food?
So, Joseph, for us to understand that, we need to look at the food chain. We need to understand the events that food goes through from the farm to the table.
Yeah.
Identifying the entry point for contaminants. So let us start by looking at what happens on the farm. You will notice that heavy metals are introduced at the point of farming.
Okay.
Currently, fertilizers,
okay.
Pesticides.
Oh yeah.
And the reason as to why they are using agrochemicals is because they need to address the increasing demand of food due to the population growth. So use of chemicals is one of the entry points for food contaminants. And these heavy metals are quite stable in the environment. For instance, lead is stable. Mercury, arsenic are some of the chemicals that are used.
What do you mean that they are stable?
So it means that they cannot be broken down.
Oh, they stay in the environment for a very long time.
For a long time.
Okay.
And the plants take it up, and when you consume these plants, they accumulate in your body, and they are being implicated in causing quite a number of cancers. Still within the farm, there are issues to deal with the quality of the seedlings that are used. There is a common problem of aflatoxins, and aflatoxins are a kind of fungal metabolites and
fungal
particles that, when consumed, could damage our liver. And they have been implicated in groundnuts, in maize and cassava, and majority of the staple foods that we consume.
Do the aflatoxins get in on the farm or after the food has left the farm?
So it's two-way. Within the farm, it could occur during the storage and the mixing.
Okay.
When we mix the various foods, we increase the risk of contamination. Additionally, even along the transportation, how are food products transported? You'll find that there is mixing of foods with animal products, and this could increase the risk or compromise the risk to food contamination. There's a point I also wanted to highlight on the pervasive abuse of the use of drugs in human drugs
Okay.
in treating animals. And
I've had like ARVs being used in piggeries. I've had like antibiotics, human antibiotics being used on cattle, on chicken. Yeah, something like that.
oh yes, yes, and all this contributes to the complexities of the burden of the problem that we're seeing.
So that means these drugs, human drugs, when they are consumed by these animals, actually they keep in the bodies of the animals, and when that food in form of meat, beef or chicken, when it's introduced in our systems, these drugs are already there.
Oh,
and they
yes.
can predispose one to resistance, among other things.
Yes, hence the term antimicrobial resistance.
Oh, okay.
Yes, thank you for pointing out that. So beyond the transportation, if we are to look at what happens within the markets where the food is kept, where the food is sold at, you also notice contaminants are introduced through mixing of foodstuffs, and also the conditions as to where these foods have been stored could increase the risk of contamination. The hot and humid conditions also further worsen this problem here.
Okay.
So that is part of the food chain. However, towards the end of the food chain, and that is at the consumer stage or step, you will notice
our homes.
now that is within our homes.
Okay.
There are issues to deal with hygiene
Okay.
that increase the risk of the foodborne illnesses. For instance, mixing raw meat with vegetables could increase the risk of some of these diarrheal diseases. You've heard of these pathogens called salmonella. They are introduced during mixing of foodstuffs. And this has now implications for control measures on how best to mitigate the risk at various stages across the food chain.
Okay. So you don't encourage mixing meats with vegetables?
We highly discourage mixing raw foods with ready-to-eat foods because of the risk of pathogens that could be introduced to the foods.
I was getting a little scared. I was like, are we going to do away with food? We stop eating food? How do we, in our families, make sure that actually our food is safe? You talked about aflatoxins. You've talked about the intoxication from the meat products through the drugs and all that. Isn't the boiling in our homes enough, on our charcoal stoves, on our gas cookers? Can that help to get our food ready for eating?
So some of the pathogens are thermotolerant. It means that they are resistant to heat.
Okay.
So we need to take measures from inception of the food chain to ensure that control measures are introduced within the farm, along the transportation, and also good hygiene practices are ensured, that is within our households.
Okay.
Yes. And of course, boiling is recommended. Yes.
Wow. And what is coming out very clearly, to avoid what I'm hearing from Jimmy, the nutritionists tell us we should eat our vegetables raw. But what I'm hearing from you, it is not very safe. We should have some heating of our vegetables just in case there are some contaminants. Is that right?
Not necessarily heating of vegetables. We need to put measures to lessen or mitigate the risk of cross-contamination. Vegetables eaten raw are at increased risk of foodborne illnesses if there is contamination.
Okay.
The risk is at contamination. However, if measures are put in place, then it is okay to eat our vegetables. And these are hygiene practices. These have issues to deal with storage and proper handling of food.
Surprising that actually the food we carry from our markets, the food we carry from the grocery shops, could be having a lot of contamination in them, and we are carrying these to our homes. So we need to give extra care the way we keep these foods at home and the way we prepare them to be eaten. And Jimmy is still here with us, and we're going to be discussing more after a short break. Please keep tuned in.
You are watching the DocTalk Show.
My home, I smile when I think of you, Uganda. My home. My home, I dance when I look at you, Uganda. My home, oh my Uganda.
I know with you I'll always stay forever. I know, because I feel that we belong together. My home, under the sun so bright, under the moon at night, on my heart, mommy, oh my Uganda.
Hey, mama.
My Uganda. My Uganda. My Uganda. My Uganda. Nikukunda. My Uganda. Amari alemira. My Uganda.
Nyoe nikugonza.
My Uganda.
Amina ngojo. Amina ngojo.
My Uganda.
At MTN, we look forward to starting another exciting journey together to grow our home, Uganda.
You are watching the DocTalk Show.
Dr. Joseph Gavin Nyanzi, your host tonight, and tonight we're talking about food and how to make sure that actually the food we take in is safe for you and your family members. Reminding you again about our social media platforms, the DocTalk Show on Facebook, on YouTube, and actually we are airing live now. Please share the link with your family and friends, your old B's and OGs. Let them come and let's empower ourselves concerning health. And in the studio tonight with me is a public health specialist, Jimmy Osuret, and he's been telling us about food and its safety, and we are continuing. Jimmy, wow, you've talked about the food chain right from the farm, storage, and into our homes. And I was getting a little scared. Is there hope, or actually we stop eating food? Because I'm very, very scared, and I guess somebody watching me there is also scared about food. What is the way forward? For example, I've had a concern about the eggs we consume. You know, probably the nutritionist will tell us the eggs we consume, a big number of Ugandans consume eggs. Every stand, in every town, there is a Rolex stand. You know, how do we make sure that actually we are safe? The eggs, you know, for example, if I consume rice, we can know that this rice is made maybe from barley, picked from barley. How do we follow up the eggs? There are many farms all over the country. How do we make sure that actually these different foods that we take are safe for me and my family?
Thank you for raising up that concern. Indeed, there are issues around preservation of foods. For instance, if eggs are stored poorly, they would be at risk of going bad. Molds would grow on them, and this would introduce foodborne related illnesses. So what's the way forward on this? Issues of food safety need regulation.
Okay.
Issues of food safety need control measures to be put in place. And in Uganda, we have quite a number of systems that can help us with that. For instance, we have the Uganda National Bureau of Standards that is mandated with coming up with standards for food as well as standards for other products, both processed and ready to eat foods. So we need to work within this. Additionally, we have the Kampala Capital City Authority, for those that are within Kampala. that has a Directorate of Public Health that has come up with measures on how to regulate food premises. Food premises could be restaurants that supply foods to the public.
Chapati stalls?
Oh yes. So still on that point of the stalls, before someone establishes a food premise, a stall as an example, they need to get certification from the relevant authority within their area of operation.
Does this really happen?
Oh yes, this happens.
Okay.
And a good example is if you walk into a food establishment, try to look out for a certificate displayed at the entrance. And that is an example that they have been certified.
I'm thinking about the Rolex guy by the roadside. Do they get certification to operate those stalls?
So we have a challenge where we have the makeshift kind of businesses, people trying to find livelihood, people trying to find a way of survival. And you'll notice not all of them are registered. So how do we go about with helping them, given that they also make a contribution to providing food? Much as they do that, we need to ensure that they work within the relevant food safety frameworks.
I've just remembered, at the beginning of COVID, and when we were enforcing the SOPs, people cracked jokes. I saw a picture how people are like, the chapati nowadays are tasting even much different from before. So there's that element of how do we ensure that actually the chapatis we consume, because that's really a big contribution to the food we take in the chapatis. Stalls everywhere. What are some of the practical things to ensure that actually the chapatis we consume from these stalls are safe for me and my family to take?
So, as I come to answer that, for a food handler to be certified to handle food or prepare food for the public, there is a checklist of items that they need to fulfill.
Okay.
Issues around availability of clean and wholesome water, issues around how the refuse is going to be managed, issues around measures in place to minimize risk. However, you'll notice that those are not in place. So this has been left to you and I. This has been left to everyone to collectively come and find a way forward. And a practical way forward is for us to ensure that food handlers are regulated and given a supportive environment, because of course they also contribute to livelihoods in their homes.
Yeah.
So how do we regulate them? How do we ensure that this information on good hygiene practices reaches them? Issues of awareness creation are very, very pertinent to them.
Wow. We've really emphasized so much on the ready-to-eat food from our farms. But there is a big portion of food that actually is processed. You know, every time I move around, when I'm watching TV or listening to radio, there are more than 500 drinks that are out in the shops, in the market for Ugandans to consume. What is your take? What is the qualified drink for me, a processed drink for me and my family? What should I be looking out for? What food is safe for me? What drink is safe for me and my family? To the viewer that is listening right now and watching us tonight.
Thank you, Joseph, for raising that important point. I must say that factories or industries that are producing food or processing foods have to work within an established framework. And this framework is given to them by the Uganda National Bureau of Standards. So one of the things that we look out for is whether these products are certified by the authority in the country, which is the Uganda National Bureau of Standards. So what it does, they usually take samples of these drinks and do tests to them to look out for whether they are microbes or agents that bring about food contamination. And once they pass this, they are allowed to carry on. Additionally, also within the structure, we have what we call health inspectors.
Okay.
These are competent authority who are mandated to go and visit these factories and industries and see that they are following standard operating procedures when it comes to producing the drinks that we consume.
In other words, for the consumer out there, when it comes to processed foods, we are at the mercy of the law and the law enforcers. As an individual, there is so little I can do to determine which drink to take and not to take.
Additionally, I may not say that entirely. So when you go to the supermarkets or the shops to buy the drinks, we should also look out for the shelf life. There are expiry dates that are indicated in there. We should look out for the way the foods are stored, because storage would also compromise the quality. A product may have left the factory in a wholesome way, but the way it is handled would compromise its quality.
Okay.
Yes.
Food is very, very crucial. We will be breaking off for a minute and we'll be back. Thank you very much.
Show profiles Uganda's healthcare sector. On the DocTalk show today, like a first car on a mission, the Uganda National Health Laboratory Services is on a mission to provide accurate, reliable, and dependable diagnosis to disease prevention, management, and control. As the experts explain in the following expose.
I'm called Viola Kasone. I'm a lab technologist here.
I'm Anthony Chimba. I work at UNHLS, Central Public Health Laboratory based in Butabika, lab technologist.
So where you are here is the hepatitis B lab. And in this lab, we basically run samples that come in from all over the country for hepatitis B viral load testing and hepatitis C testing.
Viral load services is one of the services we offer to our community and the entire country. We use a number of machines to do that and quantify the amount of virus in this person who is on treatment.
The machine where I'm standing right here, it's called the Cobas. It's a Roche platform. It's called the Cobas E411, and we basically use it to run hepatitis samples and hepatitis. It's an ELISA machine, so it helps us quantify the virus level in someone's sample. So it's a machine we normally use for study samples and not on a daily routine. Basically do the viral load testing for all the patients that test positive for hepatitis B.
On top of viral load, these machines or platforms can also do COVID testing. They also do hepatitis B testing. We also use them to do different validations of different machines or different diagnostics.
For patients that test positive for hepatitis C.
Then also, these machines, we have 11 Abbott platform machines, Abbott platforms, and 2 Cobas machines. These are the ones that we use mainly. The Abbott machines can output, both Abbott and Cobas 8800 can output 140,000 tests in a month.
Cobas AmpliPrep and TACMAN, the fully automated extraction and amplification of the virus. So the machine can help us tell how much of the virus is in your body, such that the decision to treat or monitoring can be made at your facility. So in this lab, we receive about 2,000 samples in a month, and we are able to give back the results in a period of 4 days, and the clinician is able to see them and manage their patients.
In a day, one Cobas machine can give us 3,000 results, and then an Abbott machine can give us close to 200 results. That is if we work 24 hours, and which is the case here. The lab runs 24 hours. The same platforms are used to test COVID-19. They are also used to test hepatitis B, to do hepatitis B viral load.
So this platform here, we are currently using it to test for COVID-19, but it can also do HPV. We actually run HPV testing here, and as well TB. But the main sample that is running currently is the COVID-19. The same machine can also do hepatitis B and hepatitis C and EID and several others, depending on what you want to use it for, that we call multiplexing. So we want to put as many samples as we can so we can maximize it to full capacity. So we have 3 units, 3 gene expert units, can in 40 minutes can give you a result of a patient. So it makes the turnaround time really small for a particular patient.
You are watching the DocTalk Show.
Echa COVID-19 chijja kugwa only if we stay at home, observe physical distancing, wear masks properly, sanitize or wash our hands with soap and water regularly, or get vaccinated now.
You are watching the DocTalk Show.
Thank you for allowing us in your homes this evening. And yeah, we've been talking about food and its safety, and we all know that it's very, very important in our development as human beings. And we are live on our social media platforms, the DocTalk Show on YouTube, the DocTalk Show on Facebook and Twitter. Please follow us, like our pages, subscribe, and invite your friends. Share that link. They cannot miss out on this very important information. In studio with me tonight is Mr. Jimmy Osret, a public health specialist, and is here to empower us about why food safety is very important for you and my family. And Jimmy, you know, for about 2 years now, it's been about COVID. Everything that we do is done in light of COVID. Everything to do with life, world over. The recent Olympics, COVID determined the flow of things. So even as we've been treating COVID for the last 2 years, food has been a very important aspect. So I would love you to really tell our viewers, how is food safety or food hygiene very important even as we stay safe, because COVID is still around us? How do we keep safe even with our food and fight on this battle?
Thank you, Joseph, for highlighting that. Of course, we are in times where we are suffering or experiencing the challenges related to COVID. During the first lockdown, you remember measures were put in place to try and mitigate COVID. Some of the measures included the closure of food premises, restaurants, and the like. However, we have realized some benefits from the measures that have been put in place to lessen the effects of COVID. Issues to deal with hand washing have actually had unanticipated benefits. If you notice, diarrheal diseases like cholera have gone down.
Very, very much.
If you also notice that before you enter any establishment, before you enter any premise, you need to have your hands washed.
So you would say that is the blessing in disguise, the good thing about COVID.
Oh yes, and as a country we are grappling with issues of hand hygiene. It was an area that was being taken for granted, but with enforcement supported by awareness, there is increased uptake of hand washing, and these are some of the benefits from the measures of COVID-19.
Wow. In a way, this has helped to contribute to food hygiene, because I know one of the ways through which we have gotten food contaminated is at the place of ingesting the food. I'm reminded of the 4 Fs. Do you remember the 4 Fs?
Oh yes.
Let's go.
We have the food, we have the fingers, we have the flies. Crown it up with the last one.
Everybody watching us knows the last one. So it is very, very, very crucial. Each one of us watching, hand hygiene and food safety are inseparable. So even one of the things we can contribute on individual basis is washing our hands very regularly. And that has not been ever overemphasized like it has been in the last 2 years because of COVID. So Jimmy, we will be coming to a close soon. What are the what is the way forward? Call to action. What should I do as a consumer to stay safe? What should I do as a consumer to keep my children safe, even while they're at school, while they're at home? I know for now most of them are at home. How can we stay safe?
Oh yes, thank you for raising this issue of the way forward. I like that you call it a call to action. So these are recommendations. And I'm going to request that we thematize them and look at the role of government.
Okay.
Then we also look at the role of the industry, the role of the consumer,
The individual,
and as well as the role of academia. But I must say that these don't work in isolation. We need to appreciate the concept of multi-sectoral collaboration if we are to address the challenges of food safety.
Wow.
Earlier on, I shared on the contribution of the farmers to the problem, the transporters, as well as the markets
Retailers.
and the consumers. So all of us have a role to play. So I have to reinforce this. Dealing with food safety has to involve everyone's contribution. Government. What can the government do? One, the government needs to put in place infrastructure to support food safety. For instance, we should have laboratories where food tests can be done in restaurants, in hospitals, to see if the quality of food is maintained.
I don't know if there are any laboratories outside Kampala that actually do food safety tests.
So we have some laboratories outside Kampala, within the districts. Oh yes, they have, we call them water quality testing laboratories.
Oh, okay. That is
so
good.
they look out for fecal contamination in water. But we need to beef up that infrastructure.
So for my village in Arua, I don't have to come to Kampala to test the food. It can be done in Arua.
Within the local government in Arua. So, but we need to beef it up with more infrastructure.
Okay.
So that's what the government can do. The government can also support in enforcement. But we believe enforcement works well if there's a component of awareness creation. How do we give the right information to food handlers to take on good hygiene practices? So this is paramount. Also within the government, they are mandated with certification for the industries, for the food premises, to ensure that before they start business, they meet all the minimum food safety requirements. So government has a critical role to play. Then let me move onto the consumers, that is we who eat food.
The people watching us tonight.
And as consumers, we have a critical role to play. Number one, within our premises, we need to ensure that we follow the recommended food preservation guidelines to ensure that the food that we buy is kept, that is within its original state and does not go stale or bad. So it's quite critical. Then issues of hand washing, issues of washing vegetables before you eat them raw, proper cooking of meat, fish, to ensure that the bacteria that are in are killed. We also recommend that. Then also, most importantly, research and academia have a role to play. That is when it comes to addressing the challenges that we see, specifically for food safety. As researchers, we generate a wealth of information out there that could benefit policymakers. So we are moving into a time where decisions have to be informed with the best available evidence. Countries that have moved or progressed far in ensuring food safety are those that have embraced the contribution of research in evidence-based decision making. So those are quite critical issues that I felt I needed to bring out up front.
Wow, that is quite an amount of good information for us this evening. And I remember at the beginning we were told that actually evidence shows that annually we spend in hundreds of billions of dollars to treat conditions that are associated with ingestion or consuming of contaminated food. So this is a very critical point. And Jimmy has been shedding a lot of light on this, and he has really emphasized your place as a consumer, your role on how you can make sure that actually you take in food that is free of contaminants, both processed food and food that is ready to eat. So our call to action tonight is very important for you, our viewers. Let's continue to emphasize the hand washing. Let's continue to emphasize to getting processed foods from the right places and looking at the container to see that actually the date is correct, to see that actually that particular food, drink is safe for you and your family members. Please keep the questions running in our social media handles, and we'll be glad to respond to those questions. It's been a wonderful evening with you. Jimmy, parting shots?
Thank you very much for this opportunity. As I mentioned at the start, we need to ensure that the right information is out there to the public such that they make informed decisions. Secondly, the information and discussions that we have on this platform is relevant to policymakers. They could get 1 or 2 key takeaway messages that they could use in making decisions that will advance our country in Uganda as we aspire to move to a modern country within the next 30 years as detailed in the National Development Plan. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you, Jimmy, for this great information tonight. I hope you've been empowered. Personally, I've been empowered, and I know what I'm going to do after this and what I should leave out. Once again, Dr. Joseph Gavin Nyanzi has been your host tonight. Thank you very much. See you next Thursday.
The DocTalk Show.
Ha! Bueno, yaba no mojo, yaba no wishi. I don't know. If it is a boy, I'm going to be calling Hakatabas. The garo ret nyana naza kumani mig. Otio? Ha! Contamination grave. Ay! Я ж глаза мущу. Вот ё. Ха-ха. Я ну где? Слепай как беби at home. Thank you.
Katoto. Hold on. What about immunization?
No. Nga. Immunization bossy. Tuza kuchikoro wanyi.
Katoto, your son is a citizen of Uganda now. Atogu no mwana witu. Our government has assured that all these essential vaccines, they are free. To Asasude.
You mean immunization is free?
Yes. So we have made sure that there are several health center units where you can take Katabazi and he gets essential vaccines. Before Katabazi reaches the age of 13, he will need to receive immunity against polio.
Polio? Whooping cough.
Tetanus, measles.
Yamawe, measles,
hepatitis, influenza. No. The government will even support you by giving you free mosquito nets to help fight against malaria.
Umwana kazarerwa.
Yes.
Amurere maura down the corner. Yeah, yatunga immunization.
The annual Nurses and Midwives Webinar Conference is back. The third Virtual 2-day conference under the theme Legacy and Leadership, the Importance of History in Nursing will be held via Zoom. Although nursing is one of the most essential and trusted professions globally, as seen during the current pandemic, nurses and midwives are essential workers. However, globally,